All right, Nick, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, fresh off of a 2-game winning streak. Big win last week versus the Green Bay Packers. I think there's been some bright spots on this Pittsburgh team getting a little bit brighter. There's one guy in particular who's been getting a lot of shine, but he's now been officially recognized by the Steelers and the coaching staff, and I think this is a big move going forward for the Steelers. Let's get into the article, and we'll talk about it on the other side. This is on Sunday. Pittsburgh Steelers running back Jaylen Warren was announced with the starters prior to the team's 23-19 win over the Green Bay Packers. On Tuesday, however, Warren said in his press conference, Warren, who has been the backup to Najee Harris this season, revealed that head coach Mike Tomlin notified him in the weeks lead into the game. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, when asked on Tuesday, gave this response. "You guys ask me every week. You guys see the consistency from Warren." He said it was an acknowledgement of Warren's preparedness and professionalism that sometimes as simple as announcing a player at a home game. So, Nick, I think this was kind of a ceremonial announcement that Warren has been named the starter for the Steelers, but this has been something kind of that Tomlin's alluding to. It's been building all season long. He says that you've seen the consistency, you've seen the preparation by Warren. He's been getting better and better every week. Quite frankly, he's outperformed Najee Harris by quite a lot. I think he has a whole 1.1 yards per carry over Najee Harris this season on average. He's just been an extremely explosive and consistent running back for the Steelers, and I think it's a really good decision for them to finally just say, hey, Warren is the starter. He's the guy we're going forward with as well. Now, I don't think that Najee Harris is going to see an extreme dip in carries. I think that they're going to use both of them in certain situations, but I think Warren now is officially the starting running back for this Steelers team, and I think that is going to be really good for them. And I want to know what your thoughts are on this, Nick. But before we get in there, Steelers fans, big game at the Cleveland Browns. Real tough defense. Battle of the Titans on the defensive side of things. Let us know, though, in the comments below. What are your predictions for this final score of this AFC North matchup? Let us know in the comments below. Browns versus Steelers. What are your predictions for the score? But Nick, what do you think about the naming of Jaylen Warren as a starter for the Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to unpack here. First of all, like you kind of alluded to, it just makes sense. Warren passes the eye test better than Najee Harris at this point in the season. You watch the Steelers play offensively. When Warren's in the game, they're more explosive, they're more efficient than when Najee Harris is in the game. When you look at the raw numbers, the yards per attempt, Warren is far ahead of Najee Harris. And even when you look at the next-gen stats, you look at Warren is much better than Najee Harris. Warren's rush yards over expectation per attempt, I know that's a mouthful, is right around 1. That's pretty good. That means on average, he gets 1 yard more per carry than what's expected. Najee Harris is basically right at 0, which basically means Warren gets more yardage than is expected. Najee Harris basically on average only gets exactly what's expected. So it just makes sense based on that Warren's a better football player at this point. He should be the starter. So a good move by Tomlin and the entire coaching staff going in that direction there. But here's the important thing to remember too. If it's obvious to us looking at the data, if it's obvious to people watching the games that Warren at this point is playing better than Najee Harris, you better believe it's extremely obvious to everybody in that locker room, right? That's saying, hey, listen, why isn't Warren the guy? He's playing better. And this is something I think Tomlin has a really good understanding of. He's done a pretty good job throughout his entire career. And honestly, I think it goes back to the Bill Cowher days of old. I think this is just what the Steelers do very well. They understand managing the culture, managing the environment, and working to elevate people from within. And I think they understand that now is the time to elevate Warren publicly, to recognize his performance, not just from the media, but from the people in the locker room as well. So no matter how you look at it in terms of just getting a player more reps, and I disagree with you a little bit. I think Warren's going to get a significant amount more touches than Najee Harris is going forward, just because I think Warren has earned it. But irregardless, this is definitely a good move in terms of acknowledging the locker room, because you better believe they know that Warren is playing better than Najee Harris, but it's also a good move for the offense as well. So credit to the Steelers coaching staff across the board. This is just a solid decision. And as it's the right time to make it, Miles, because you alluded to it in your comments there. They're heading into a massive matchup against the Cleveland Browns team that's coming off a lot of momentum, being the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore.
Yeah, Nick, and I think one key thing here is when you give Warren the starting spot, you're not really going to have to change your offense too much. Jaylen Warren's a very similar, but at this point, like you said, better running back than Najee Harris. He's a great runner. That's one thing we see, but the Pittsburgh Steelers like to throw to their running backs a lot. It's been part of their system for a long time. Remember the Le'Veon Bell days. We remember the Connor days, James Conner. He was great out of the backfield as well. Najee Harris, that's one of his bright spots. That's one of the things people talked about. Is this guy talk about, lining him up in the slot, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. But Warren, he has done great this season out of the backfield, 31 receptions for 218 yards. So I think in that aspect as well, Jaylen Warren is a really great fit to be the starter because you don't have to change the scheme. It's not going from one hard charging down hill running style running back to a shiftier back or something like that. It's two guys that are same. One's just doing a good bit better than the other this season.
And Miles, I think you brought up a great point about how the Steelers, they don't focus on making big changes. Because if you look at the Steelers right now, of course, they're famously 6-3 despite being outgained in every single game so far this season. One of the reasons they do this, and again, I think it just goes back to the Bill Cowher era. I think this is just their culture of how they're structured, is they basically find ways to not lose games. Kenny Pickett right now, according to CBS Sports, only one quarterback has committed fewer than 5 turnovers among 33 qualified quarterbacks this season. That's Kenny Pickett. That's taking care of the football. That's not losing the game. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in the top 8 in terms of fewest penalties per game. Again, that's not losing the game. One way you could potentially lose the game is if you bring in a new running back into the fold. Let's say you trade for a guy or signed a guy, bring him in to compete in this running back room. You get a guy who doesn't know the offense, a guy who's stylistically very different. You could get botched handoffs, miscommunications, and pass protection that result in sack fumbles or interceptions. Instead, like you alluded to, you're basically sliding in a stylistically very similar running back for more reps than Warren. Najee Harris is going to get some reps as well. And the offense is basically going to operate pretty much the same in terms of the quarterback managing the mechanics, managing the timing, managing the protection. What does that mean? It means not a lot of penalties. It means not a lot of turnovers, which, as we've seen through 9 games so far, means a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers victories. So no matter how you look at it, this is just a really good move from Pittsburgh. And although it's looked ugly at times, certainly on offense, there is kind of a method to the madness right now. And the Steelers, look, at a certain point, you are what your record is. And at 6-3, that's a really good football team.